She stood at my gate like she owned the place, pointing at my cabin, while talking to a man in a pressed suit. "That's the one," she said, sweeping her arm as if she were giving a private tour. The man leaned over the fence with the clipboard, smiling like the deal was already done. I stepped onto the porch with the coffee mug in my hand and called out, "Can I help you?" She didn't even turn around. "Yes," she said flatly. "You can start moving your things out. This property is being listed today." I laughed at first, assuming it was some ridiculous HOA mix-up. Then my eyes dropped to the sign planted in the dirt. "For sale. My address, my land, my cabin," and her name printed neatly underneath as the community representative. "Ma'am," I said, walking toward the gate, "this is my home." She smiled, tight and artificial. "Not anymore. The HOA voted. The property's being sold. We already have buyers lined up." My fingers clenched around the mug. "That's interesting," I replied slowly, "because last I checked, no HOA owns me or my land." She glanced at the realtor like I was being unreasonable. He leaned in and whispered something. She whispered back, "Don't worry, he won't be here much longer." That's when I noticed the lock. It wasn't mine. She had changed it. I pulled my phone out to call the sheriff, then paused. A better idea came to me. Without another word, I walked back to my shed. When I returned a minute later, I carried a heavy chain, my own lock, and a sign I'd been saving for a long time. By the time they realized what I was doing, the gate was chained shut from my side. Hanging front and center was a bright red warning: "Private property trespassers will be prosecuted." The realtor's grin disappeared. Karen's jaw hardened. "You can't do that," she snapped. I took a slow sip of my coffee. "Watch me." Her voice shot up, sharp enough to scatter birds from the trees. "You're obstructing an official sale. I'm calling security right now." She dialed without breaking eye contact. I leaned against the gate, calm. "Go ahead," I said. "Just make sure they bring real badges this time." The realtor stepped back, suddenly uneasy. "Ma'am, maybe we should." She waved him off. 2 minutes later, an old white SUV rolled up the dirt road, dust curling behind it. 2 men stepped out wearing uniforms with no patches, no department markings. One had a badge clipped to his belt, the cheap kind you order online. "Sir, you need to open this gate," the taller one said. I smiled. "And I need you to tell me what law gives you the right to be here." Karen folded her arms. "They're community enforcement. They have authority." I stepped closer, lowering my voice just enough. "Here's the thing. I know real law enforcement. I trained them: SWAT, sheriff's deputies, state police. And I know for a fact." I let the silence stretch. "You two aren't on any roster." They exchanged a look, but Karen jumped in. "You won't intimidate me with stories." "Oh, it's not a story," I said, pulling my phone back out. "It's a live call to the county sheriff. You can leave now, or explain why you're wearing fake badges on private land." The taller man shifted. The other muttered, "Karen, maybe we should know," she snapped. "He's bluffing." That's when the sound rolled in, low, steady, unmistakable. A county patrol truck. It stopped behind the SUV, lights flashing through the trees. The real sheriff stepped out, broad-shouldered, mirrored sunglasses, the kind of presence that didn't need shouting. "Morning," he said calmly. "Anyone want to tell me why I'm here?" Karen jumped in. "This man is illegally occupying this property. We have a buyer ready, and he's blocking the sale. He also threatened my security officers." The sheriff's gaze shifted to me. "That true?" "No, Sheriff," I said evenly. "This is my land. She's trespassing. They're impersonating officers, and she changed my gate lock." I raised my phone. "Every second is recorded." He turned to the 2 men. "Names?" they stammered. One gave a name I knew was fake. I'd trained someone with it years ago. "Badge numbers," the sheriff said. Silence. Karen stepped forward. "This isn't HOA matter. We have authority." He cut her off with one look. "Unless the HOA owns his deed, you have no authority." She paused, then smirked. "Actually, I do." She pulled a folder from her bag and handed it over. The sheriff frowned. "Interesting." He looked at me. "These say the property transferred 2 weeks ago." My stomach dropped. I had signed nothing. Karen's smile widened. "See, he's been living here illegally." The sheriff handed me the papers. The signature wasn't mine. Not even close. That's not my handwriting, I said quietly. Doesn't matter, she replied. County records show the transfer. With whose money? I asked. She didn't answer. The sheriff rubbed his jaw. If this is fake, it's felony fraud. I can't confirm it here. Fine, Karen said quickly. Then he leaves while you check. I stepped closer to the gate. Not happening. Then I turned to the sheriff. 2 months ago, I installed a security system. Plates logged. Cameras time-stamped. Backups off-site. Karen's confidence cracked. You can't use that, it's my land. I cut in. And it'll show exactly who walked into the courthouse with those papers. The sheriff nodded slowly. All right. We're going to my office. Karen opened her mouth to argue. Then a sleek black SUV rolled up behind the patrol truck. No plate. Tinted windows. The man who stepped out made her face drain of color. The man shut the SUV door with deliberate care, the kind of slow, controlled motion that came from someone who was used to commanding rooms. He was tall and sharp-looking, clean-cut, dressed in a tailored suit that looked wildly out of place on a dusty back road like this. He approached without speaking. Karen, who had been loud and aggressive all morning, suddenly went quiet. Her voice dipped as she spoke. I didn't think you'd come in person, she said nervously. He didn't respond. His eyes passed right over her and locked onto me instead, cold, assessing, like he was already running numbers in his head. Then he turned to the sheriff. Officer, there's no need for this to escalate, he said calmly. We have documents. We have legal standing. Let's resolve this discreetly. The sheriff cocked his head slightly. And you are? The man reached into his jacket, pulled out a leather wallet, and flipped it open. It wasn't a badge or any official ID, recognized, just a sleek business card stamped with the gold logo and the name Marlowe and Steele Holdings. It meant nothing to me, but Karen's reaction told a different story. She kept darting her eyes between him and the sheriff, like she was watching a loaded gun change hands. I stepped forward. So you're the buyer? His mouth curved into something that barely qualified as a smile. Let's just say I represent parties with a strong interest in acquiring this property. Quickly, I tightened my grip on the gate. That's strange. I don't remember listing it. Karen jumped in fast. Mr. Steele has connections, she said, forcing a syrupy tone. This situation is bigger than you realize. If you cooperate and move out, you might even receive compensation. Her words sounded polite, but her eyes were frantic, flicking around like she was terrified of what might come out next. The sheriff let out a breath. Here's how this works. Either this deed checks out, or it doesn't. Until I verify it, nobody crosses that gate. Steele's gaze hardened. Sheriff, you really don't understand who you're interfering with. I laughed before I could stop myself. Funny, I was thinking the same thing. His expression shifted when I added, you might want to verify the original title. The one filed 20 years ago. The sheriff glanced my way. Original title. I nodded. Filed in 2005. My father's name was on it, and it was legally transferred to me when he passed. I still have the certified copy sealed, notarized, and stored somewhere none of you can access. Karen scoffed, but her voice wavered. That doesn't prove anything. Titles get updated. This one was updated. She jabbed a finger toward the folder in the sheriff's hand like it was gospel. Though her hand was shaking, I leaned in just enough for Steele to hear me. Here's where your plan falls apart. You paid for a fake deed from someone who never owned this land. And when that comes to light, I'm not the one facing charges. The sheriff's radio crackled to life. Dispatch to Unit 4. Courthouse security footage from 2 weeks ago is in. Property transfer suspect is a female mid-50s. Short blonde hair, floral blouse. Every head turned toward Karen. She went completely still. That's not me, she stammered. I wasn't even there. The sheriff was already heading back to his truck. We'll let the video decide. If it matches, you're looking at impersonation, fraud, and unlawful lock tampering. Steele moved closer to her, his voice low and sharp. You told me this was clean. You said he was a squatter. Karen's face drained of color. He was supposed to be gone by now. I couldn't help it, I smiled. Yeah, about that. The sheriff turned to me. Sir, I'll need you to come down to the station. Bring that certified title. We'll clear this up properly. I nodded, already thinking about the storage locker where it was kept. As we moved toward the vehicles, Steele stepped aside, pulled out his phone, and spoke under his breath. Plan B. Do it tonight. Those words hit like a knife. I paused, pretending to adjust my jacket while I listened. His voice stayed calm, practiced. I don't care if it's risky. Make sure the place is empty first. Then burn it. My stomach dropped. This wasn't about paperwork anymore. He was talking about my home. Karen noticed my expression and quickly looked away, tugging at her blouse. That told me everything. She knew, and she wasn't going to stop it. The sheriff noticed my pause. Everything all right? Steele slipped his phone away and smiled. All good. Let's wrap this up. I made a decision right then. I wasn't saying anything not here, with both of them ready to twist the story. Instead, I said, I'll follow you down in my own truck. He agreed and pulled away. I didn't go to the station. I took the back trail through the woods that curved behind my cabin. From there, I had a clear view of the road. 20 minutes later, a dark van rolled up, stopping just far enough away to look intentional. Two men stepped out, both wearing gloves. One carried a red gas can. I stayed hidden, phone raised, recording everything. They walked straight toward my gate, clearly expecting it to be unlocked. When they hit the chain and heavy lock, one of them pulled out bolt cutters. That's when I stepped from the trees and racked my shotgun, not aiming, just loud enough. Private property, I said evenly. And you've got about 5 seconds to explain why you're holding gasoline. One of them dropped the can. The other tried to bluff. We're maintenance. I raised an eyebrow. Maintenance usually comes during daylight and without masks. I gestured to my phone. Smile. You're already on multiple security feeds. I didn't even need to call the sheriff. He doubled back, suspicious after how fast Steele left. His cruiser pulled in behind the van, lights flashing. Minutes later, both men were in cuffs. The sheriff looked at me. I'm guessing these two don't work for you. I handed him my phone. That's not even the best part. Check the voice recording. You'll hear exactly who sent them. By nightfall, Karen was arrested for fraud and trespassing. Steele was charged with conspiracy to commit arson and property theft. Turns out Marlowe and Steele Holdings had been targeting older properties, trying to flip them illegally. Mine just happened to be the one they couldn't steal quietly. As I locked the gate that night, I glanced at the new sign hanging beside the chain. Protected property owner, armed and recording. I thought about my father, about the title he'd left me, about the people who thought fake paperwork and intimidation were enough. I looked down the road one last time and muttered, I didn't fight for this country just to hand it over to crooks. Then I walked back into my cabin. My land, my rules.